Welcome to Organizational Sherlocks, the podcast where business meets psychology and your organizational puzzles meet their match.
Join us for captivating stories and practical solutions to unravel your toughest challenges.
I'm Dr. Elizabeth Fleming.
And I'm Morgan Ashworth, your guides to a prescription for business success.
Let's dive in. Well, hello. It is wonderful to see you, Morgan, and to invite John here, Mr. John Arms, to our podcast today. John and I have known each other for several years and have kind of connected in various ways. He's a fractional marketing executive, and I'm thrilled to have you here. So if it's okay, John, I just want to open the floor to you and
Sure.
ask you just about yourself. Tell us a little bit about John Arms and how you found yourself here today.
I'd be happy to, but first I got to compliment you too. That was the coolest open on a podcast I've ever been on. You got this wonderful back and forth thing. I'm like, that was cool. You guys nailed that. I loved it.
Thank you.
Yeah. So you just it was just synchronized perfectly. I'm super grateful to be here. Thank you for having me on. I am a fractional chief marketing leader. That's part of what I do. And I teach others how to become fractional as well. And as you all know, like marketing and sales and marketing, they're two peas in a pod. So it's really important to have marketing and sales people in sync and working together, especially now in the age of technology and what all of that means. So you can look atop here and see a lot of gray hair. I have been in marketing and got my gray hair starting actually in 1989. My first job that was close to marketing was at the Minnesota Daily. I'm a Minnesota Gopher. And ever since, I've been in love with marketing and sales and now fractional. That's me in a nutshell right there. That's me in a pea pod.
Well, thank you for being a Gophers fan. I appreciate that as a Minnesotan myself. So go Gophers for sure. I know,
Exactly.
Morgan, you probably don't feel.
No, sorry, New England over here.
Yeah, I get you.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah. Well, thank you, John. We're really excited to have you on. Just like Elizabeth said, I know last podcast we were talking a little about training in sales and kind of touched very lightly on consumer psychology. There's so much to cover. But John, tell us a little bit about your understanding of consumer psychology and how you've applied it in your world, even if you've applied it in a more informal sense. We'd love to hear it.
Absolutely. And it's amazing the times we're in when you talk about consumer psychology. Because, with the digital revolution and people being to self-select more about what marketing, gets into their ecosystem, it is such a different world than the one I grew up in. And I love it. I love it to death. And the one thing just to share one of my little tools, I should say, is there's a great writer, Bob Berg. He wrote Endless Referrals, and he also wrote The Go-Giver. Great author, great man. And in his Endless Referrals, he makes this great statement: no one will ever, 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 ever buy from you unless they cross three gateways. They have to know you, like you, and trust you. And in an age where we think so much about consumers as a number, and they're a lead, and they're a prospect, and they're in a funnel, and you hit them 12 times in that funnel, all of this mechanics, there has been a move, I think, away from consumer psychology in a lot of ways. Whoa. They're not machines. They're human beings. They buy based on emotions. Come to them that way. Earn your way to get them to know you, like you, and trust you. And you can make a friend and you can have a relationship. So that's how I approach it. It's been very successful for me. And I think, I quite honestly, that I think a lot of technology has sort of gotten a little bit away from that very important, critical part about consumer psychology.
Yeah. I love that you touch on, the personalization of sales.
It's huge.
People aren't robots. I think we kind of said this earlier, Elizabeth. People aren't robots, and so you have to have that personal touch. I know every time I'm working with a sales team, we really build personalization, especially when we take into account the recognition products and the promotional products industry, which is where my company, Chief People Officer, falls. We have this, in tune type of relationship with our customers where we're constantly working with them. We're regularly working with them. It's not just about, the bottom line and or technically the top line and just trying to get the most sales, right? So it's really cool. I love that you bring in the personalization of it.
And when I do sales training, I do a workshop for sales teams. It's called LinkedIn for Sales Teams, and you always have to have goals and objectives, right? You have to be there. And what I tell people, especially younger salespeople, I'm like, really, what you're going for? You're not going for the sale, and your aim should be you're going for a referral, because it changes your thinking altogether. Which means you want to do so good and solve their problems so well and accomplish so much for them that they're going to say wonderful things about you. That's way beyond transactional. And if your mind starts there, you'll have all the success you want as a salesperson. But if you think it's transactional, I need this transaction, that's a very exhausting way to make a living.
Yeah. I love the idea of building that relationship with them. I know that, I think we joked, Morgan and I, in our last episode that we were, maybe it was the last one, not the best salespeople in the world, although we can do it. We're just, it's maybe not our natural inclination at times. But I do find myself, and I think this is a bit of what you're talking about. I find myself often listening to a podcast or reading an article or something, and then it makes me think of a client, and all it does is take 3 seconds for me just to forward it to them and say, hey, this reminded me of you. That's part of building a relationship. I'm not expecting a sale or anything. I just am building a relationship.
Yeah. Because if you think about it, those referrals, one person could turn into 10 more people as long as you have that relationship. I know myself, I can do sales. I actually had someone once say to me, are you sure you don't work in sales? I was only trading in like an old vehicle of mine, and I talked them up multiple $1,000s. And they're like, are you sure you're not in sales? And I'm like, I'm like, I can do sales. I should be able to do sales because I train salespeople, but personally, I'm a little introverted, and so it's a little more exhausting for me. It's definitely, there's like a personality to be a sales rep, I feel like.
Yeah, there's a lot of dynamics. I mean, being a good human is at its core. And that's kind of, people will say, well, you could sell ice to an Eskimo, and they say these old platitudes about people who are gregarious or have big sales personalities. And that's not really it, right? Good sales is consistency and relationship and being a good person. And that's who the best salespeople are. And in many ways, our society still has a very wrong idea of what sales actually is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you have to be genuine. You have to be authentic.
That's right. Mm-hmm. That's right. If you do a word bubble, use one of those internet word bubble tools. Say, when you associate words with sales, what comes up? You hear words like pushy, aggressive, self-motivated, transactional. That's that. And you could, if you did that, like here we are in 2024, and those words haven't changed since the 60s and 70s.
Right.
Yeah.
It's our ideas of what sales are totally different now.
Yeah. And I know for me, like we teach like the with them technique, the what's in it for me technique. Yeah. We also talk about consultative sales. We're consulting our customers. They have a budget, they have a goal, they want a certain look to their product. Luckily, what we do is fully customized. We already need to get to know the person. But if you can take that consultative approach, it's night and day, that relationship you develop.
That's what the great ones do. Great salespeople are outstanding listeners.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
They're just amazing.
You're like a therapist.
In many ways, we're there to solve a problem. There's always this back and forth with sales teams, right? Like, the sales leader, they're good ones or bad ones. That's always a question of what makes a good one. But did you get all your information in the CRM? Did you track the thing? Did you turn your prospect into a number is what they're asking. And salespeople are like, God, I work so hard on the relationship and I want to help them. I'm not motivated by that. I want to help them. That's where my motivations are. And so there's always this battle between the Salesforce tool and the sales physical numbering tools and the core of a good salesperson, which is at its core, it's good humanity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's almost hard to ask them, did you take that wonderful relationship that you're trying to nurture, and it's like a little baby duck you pulled out of the pond, right? And did you take that and you turn it into a number? Like, oh man, that hurts my heart. That's Mary. She's a good person, right? There's this dichotomy between tracking good sales and being a good salesperson. The fight's been around forever, by the way, on that.
What do
Yeah,
you think the
no,
solution is?
Well, I think the solution is, I know on the sales side what the solution is: continue to be a good human and solve problems. That will
Okay.
100% for the rest of every salesperson's career, that will feed you forever. Finding a balance. I think in the last 20 years, technology has pushed too much automation, which
Mm,
has removed a lot of humanity from the sales. Nobody likes that. Salespeople like it, and guess what? Customers hate it.
sure.
Right? Why did you send me an automated newsletter from your company? We talk every day. You know what I mean? It's just that they're at odds. They're at odds. And I
yeah.
think the solution is to never leave the psychology of sales and never leave the human side. You'll always succeed that way.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that point. I think there's I mean, I don't know. I struggle because I love technology. It's made my life a lot easier, but I also
Sure.
understand what you're saying. I mean, I think that from like a tracking perspective, as humans, right, we naturally forget things. We may forget the
Hmm.
last time we reached out if we're not really conscious and intentional about it. And so in that way, I like that some of those tools will kind of track the emails, like just pull automatically the emails
Yeah,
that were sent. But I think what you're saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that those emails should be personalized and they
Mhm.
should be written by you, even though they're being tracked in the system, not necessarily just a canned email going out for the sake of going out. Is that
that's
fair?
right. That's that's absolutely it. And I've seen some people succeed really well at this dichotomy, in that they realize the great customer relationship salesperson is not the same as the person cataloging the data. So
Mhm.
don't treat them the same. Get a sales support person or team that loves doing the organizational stuff. Get
Yeah.
yourself a little. I'm going to make a little pun here, but get yourself a little organizational Sherlock to
Ah,
help with the organizational part, because those are two good complementary things. They
Mhm.
very.
Yeah, you have to have coordination and the creativity.
That's right. That's right. Yep. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So Elizabeth, it's funny enough, you were talking about, you still want to track these things, but they should be personal emails.
Mhm.
That's kind of how we run. So we have a system where we can connect back that personal email to our system, but at the same time, we have quote unquote automated emails. There's a
Mhm.
script there that they can start to utilize. So it goes both ways. It goes from our CRM system, or you can attach it into the CRM system. And then on
Mhm.
top of that, we have, our campaigns, which is they're very like we have regular ones that go out, but they're specific to certain groups of customers and certain groups of events. And so it's like, hey, your event's coming up, right?
Yeah. They
But we
need that.
always tell our sales reps, you got to make sure that you're sending these emails as well. Don't depend on marketing to send these for you. You're responsible for reaching out to your customers.
You can kind of feel it, right? Like you can feel it when we're using the tools right. There's humanity to it. I'm not treating my customer like a number. I mean, you want to use the tools in your behalf, but you can feel it when it's like, oh man, now we're just trying to hammer a list.
yes.
There's so many people that look at their sales and say, I heard email works. Go buy the biggest list that you can buy and pound the hell out of it. Be like Bed Bath and Beyond. Be like the kitchen window. Be like Nike. Like just
Yeah.
murder your audience with emails, and that's terrible, right? Nobody likes getting all of that stuff, but one good email from a good connection, you treasure that. You
Yeah.
treasure that. So it's when people try to turn, when they're really thinking about their own transaction. So there's a balance. There's a balance.
Yeah. Okay, I want to do a quick poll and then we'll do this for the for our listeners as well. So maybe we can throw this on a LinkedIn post. How many people here have an email address that is specifically for junk?
Me.
Do you have one, John?
So I don't. Can I answer this in a different way?
Yes, you can.
Every week and no, I don't, because I don't have an organizational mind for that. Fortunately, I have a virtual assistant, so it's super helpful to do some wading through it. But every week and a half, I detonate the whole thing. I mean, I get 400
That's
emails a
totally
day.
fair.
if it's critical, I've seen it. And if I miss it, it's on me, but I can't deal with 400 emails a day. So I just detonate the whole thing and let it start over.
That's fair. I think that would be an interesting poll. I mean, I have one, and what we're talking about right now, kind of getting those canned emails from different places. I mean, yeah, these are places that I like to shop, or I like to whatever, know what's going on, and I want to know about the sales. But my God, I don't want 4 emails every single day. So I just have an inbox that I like send everything to, but then I get annoyed because then I have to go in and, select all, delete, whatever. So maybe I'd be better off without it. I don't know. Maybe
How many do you get a day, Alyssa?
How many do I get a day?
Yeah, how many junk emails do you get a day?
Probably, I'd have to look, but I would say in the time, it's 2:30 Central right now. Since the beginning of the day, I've probably gotten over 200.
How about you, Morgan?
I'm actually going in right now to see what it says. So this is obviously I have my junk email. I get like 100 emails to my work email because I have it specifically, dialed in, and I'm constantly unsubscribing. Plus, I have a system that gets rid of, it notices spam, and that automatically goes into the spam folder. But today I've gotten 250 emails for my junk email, and I actually unsubscribed for an hour from emails on Saturday, funny enough.
It took you an hour out of your Saturday to do that. And when you think about, psychology here, right? Like, what does that do to our brain? If, let's say, on average, it's 150 a day. I'm way over that, but, whatever. If there was 150 people at your door wanting your attention, or if that was in your inbox, your physical mail inbox, that would be like 4 pounds of junk. And the trouble is, when it comes down to psychology, we have to try to figure out some way in that deluge to separate the wheat from the chaff. Because if Elizabeth sends me an email, what she has to share with me is critically important. When it's mixed in with a bunch of other junk and I don't see it, that's a problem. So yeah, these are interesting times, folks. These are interesting times.
Yeah, retailers are definitely, participating in the door in the face technique of I'm sending you 4 emails a day. I'm trying to think of one.
I just got one.
Victoria's Secret. I get like 4, 5, 6 emails from them a day. It's ridiculous.
I just got my 4th email from Express.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And what if those emails were tailored to the person? That's true consumer psychology. It's tailored to the person. It's not just everyone. This applies to everyone, because nothing applies to everybody, Right. So if I was to get an email from Verizon, I don't need a new phone. I don't have an update coming. Stop telling me about new phones, because I'm not going to get one. Stop telling me about this plan or that plan. They don't apply to me, right? So it's so important to be like, okay, this does in fact apply to you. And that's something we also do at my companies. It applies to people when we send a marketing campaign. And we also split people up based off the type of customer they are. You can't just send a mass email and expect a response, or even better, have an engaging email, do a poll on it, something like that.
It's not exactly, you get, like you said, you get to know your customer, you get to know them, what they care about, and you'll do fine. Even an email, you'll do fine. But if you don't take that step, to really understand them, then life's going to be harder as a salesperson and a marketer, quite honestly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So out of curiosity, John, in the world of fractional marketing, how do you broach this topic with clients that maybe are used to the, the sending of a lot of emails, or kind of more traditional approaches to sales? How do you bring that up with them?
So it's a great question, and I was talking about this earlier with a wonderful fractional COO. Her name is Meredith, and we were talking about that. And the great thing about being fractional is we just go right at stuff, right? I mean, we don't have any. We're seasoned, we're wise, we know we can kind of see around corners, we know where things are going to land for people. And so we're like, if I know the way they're approaching their marketing, let's say through email, is going to hurt them, I don't care. I'm like, yep, that's going to hurt you. We're not going to do it. Well, we've always done it that way. Okay, well, that's not a good way of doing things. It's just easier when you're included and dedicated party, but free to speak your mind as well. And when you're 56 like me, you kind of earned your way to be able to speak your mind. Like there's stuff I know I want to share, and I'm an ally to my customer, and I don't want them to get hurt. Oftentimes they will hurt themselves. Like, gosh, I really think we should go buy it. I hear this all the time. We need to go get a bunch of young junior, salespeople and have them hit the phones, right? Like they say things like this, or let's go buy a list and hammer it. And I'm like, hold on, right? Now, maybe if I was working for them, I'd be a little more conservative about it, but I'm not anymore. And what I say is, if someone right now is in a room making a decision to hire a bunch of junior people to hit the phones, and you're going to be the one catching those sales calls from someone who doesn't care about you, how do you feel about that? Terrible. Well, then don't do it to somebody else. So
Yeah.
I think through the fractional lens, we're very direct, we're super honest, very respectful, but we see around the corners. We know what's going to happen with bad decision making, and quite honestly, it's our job to say so. And in a structured environment like a full-time role and things like that, as you guys know, that dynamic changes. That dynamic is not always there, especially the larger the company.
Yeah, I feel like as any sort of consultant in business, your job is to challenge the mindsets of those that you're working with. They've already reached out to you, so they have a level of openness. Maybe certain ones, the challenging of their mindset's never going to necessarily work. And those aren't clients that are going to necessarily be successful because they're probably not going to integrate what you say. But our job is to challenge people's assumptions. But now, John, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So we actually, funny enough, had an individual come in and they had suggested that we start participating in the door in the face cold email campaign. And we immediately said, no, it's not going to work with our customers. It's not going to work with the type of customers we're going to work with. It's just not going to work. We know it. We already know it because we've, one, tried it, didn't work. And two, we have a personalized set of sales. And so they wanted to bring in a set of individuals to do cold emailing and do the 5-touch service. What's your perspective on the 5-touch service of cold emailing?
I hate it. I mean, I'm a fractional. I got to say this because cold is the worst, right? I think it's lazy, to be honest with you.
Yes.
I think it's lazy. I think it's based on numbers and economics around that. And I hate it because what it's saying is I'm not going to do the homework. I'm going to go right to volume. I'm not going to take the time to learn about your prospect, understand their category, get to know them. I'm going to go right past that. And I'm going to go right to hitting them over the head with as much volume as I can, hoping that enough succumb to the pressure.
Yeah.
And it's just, again, going through the, as a fractional CMO, like know, like, and trust, right? Is what you're doing going to help them know you, like you, and trust you? And it matters. Like, are they going to know you in a good way or a bad way? Well, if you send me 5 emails, I might know you, but I sure as heck don't like you. You've interrupted my day. You've jammed your foot into the door. You're not asking about me or what I need. It's all about you and that, what'd you say, the express. And if Victoria is a secret, it's about that exchange, that transaction. So I don't like them. Now, that being said, I know I kind of follow a 12-touch rule. Like I know that people need to be touched a number of times, but that doesn't mean abused. It means shared. Sent like, hey, I got something more for you today. I've got a referral for you today. I've got an idea for you today. Here's something that's really awesome that I think matters in your category. That kind of touch is awesome. Helping? Awesome. That's good touch. 99% of the stuff out there is not about that.
Yeah. The helping touch. I like that. I like that kind of focus. Yes, it takes a number of touches to get a customer anyway, because you have to build that camaraderie, that trust with them. So you have to have a level of touches, but it doesn't have to be in a cold, distasteful way. I've even had those cold emails come to me and people ended up having like this threatening type of tone where this is going to be my second to last reach out or I'm done trying. I've had other people that actually had stated, oh, so your team doesn't care about this clearly. because I can't
Yeah.
get a hold of them. I actually reached out to the
Terrible.
chief marketing officer of that facility, and I told them what happened. I told them that is absolutely unacceptable because they were so aggressive to my to the employee that had received the email. She then followed up with an aggressive call to that employee as well of mine, and they said, this
Yeah.
isn't that's not the way we do work. This was a cold call, cold email firm they work with. I was like, well, maybe you should look into not doing cold emails or cold calls at all.
That's wild.
Say that like
Yeah, it was bad. I was like, that's
saying,
so bad. Like swear words,
Yeah.
everything getting you. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, people justify it based on numbers. Well, they say it works. The numbers work. I'm like, does it? You might get the transaction, but did you get the relationship? Did you get the referral? And that's where that stuff breaks. You might get someone to buy a product for 70% off because you hit them with 900 coupons. But you bugged your way there, right? You irritated them on the way there. Like I always say, every salesperson should be focused on the referral, not the sale, because that
Right.
means you have to earn it. That means you care deeply. That means they're first and your needs get met on the back end of the level of your service to others.
Mhm.
It always works out that way. It does. It works out that way. The less you think about yourself, the more the universe seems to point things in your direction.
Yeah. And the better world we live in. I mean, let's go think about it in that way too, right? I mean, I think there's a level
Exactly.
of authenticity here too. I mean, I often think, like before I go to bed at night, did I act with integrity, and am I proud of what I did and said and emailed and all of those things today? I mean, my hope is almost every night, if not every night, the answer is yes. And I can't imagine that folks who are sending information like that or emails like that are answering yes at the end of the night. And if they are, maybe they shouldn't be in sales. Would you agree, John?
There is a great book called The Habit of Grateful by Christine Newell. And I recommend everybody read it because I think, Elizabeth, you may be kindred spirits.
Sure.
With Christine. I've had a chance to talk to her and meet with her and podcast with her and things. And but in that book, she talks about gratitude is not only a wonderful thing to do because you feel, but she in her life story is she had it hard, and she always reached in to get gratitude. And the parallel she draws is it's because of gratitude that I have been so massively successful.
Sure.
It's been thinking about what I'm grateful for, thinking about what others. She draws a direct line between the opportunity and prosperity that comes her way. Now, isn't that awesome?
Mm-hmm.
That's really neat.
I feel like it's a level of mindfulness that, if you're present, if you're mindful, if you're thinking of others, you're going to network more. People are going to want to network with you. And, if you can express that gratitude. And, I actually just had a conversation with some of my management team the other day of you need to be able to recognize, like show recognition to your employees and show them that you're valuing them. I was like, I need to see more of that because that's the best culture you can develop. And that's how you have a more productive team in the end. But really, everyone wants to work in a positive work environment. So do it with gratitude.
Exactly. And everybody puts out a vibe. Everybody, my wife always says this, everybody creates a ripple and make it a good one, right?
Absolutely.
Make it a good one and the world comes your way. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm going to kind of put you on the spot a little bit.
Sure.
I do this a lot. Morgan knows, as do many of our listeners. But I know, you've been in this world for a while, and now it's fractional, right? For those individuals who may be starting out or interested or exploring the world of sales or marketing, what would you tell them would be important for them to think about if they want to live this life of, relationship building and authenticity and relationships over sales? Like, what would you tell them is important for them to think about or consider?
So I think one of the most important, particularly for fractional, is you have to spend time really exploring the value you bring to the world and your worth. And what I mean by that is you and I can say we come from this trade or that industry, or I built up this skill and that. That's like surface level. So I'm a fractional chief marketing officer. That's my title, right? But there's more dimensions to it. And what I've learned in my life is everybody's like a fingerprint, right? Everybody is their own take on the world. And the exploration, the time spent on really getting to know yourself, to come to grips with it, spend time on it. We've got classes about this. Like, that is critical, because to be independent is to be an ally to somebody else, is to help others. It's got very little to do with your resume.
Mhm.
It's got more to do with who you are as a human. And sadly, over the past 40, 50 years, we've decided, everybody's kind of a, everybody's kind of a machine, right? You are a gear, and there's more to us than that. And so I always encourage people, like, really get to know yourself. And when you think you do, go deeper. And there's life coaches and counselors and things. They will help you get there. Maybe even you guys do this, but go one level deeper. That is where the magic comes.
Yeah, I
Right.
think Elizabeth and I have kind of talked about this. It's not just the training that goes alongside being a robot, I guess, but it's also the developmental side of things. Of, you need to know yourself if you're going to lead. You need to know yourself if you're going to be successful, because you gotta get away from that internal bias we all have, and that is
It's
so important. I feel like
and
in this day and age, what's nice is consumer psychology. We're starting to see some industrial organizational psychology individuals get into the space. I actually am
Mhm,
going to be shifting my focus in the company to do that. And so
mhm.
because of that, we're getting that more personal level, that more the more personal applicability of sales and marketing versus the previous consumer psychology, which is treating you like a robot.
Yeah, and we did that since, I write about this in my book Revolt. Is we decided as a society that shareholders are more important than workers. We did that in 1980. And then that created an entire work culture that, kind of broke when COVID hit. But
Mhm.
so it went there for a full generation. And we made that decision. Like, that was Freudian economic, or not Freudian. I'm skipping an economist, an important economist. I'm losing it right now, but it is an economic model where shareholders are the end all be all.
Yeah, we'll
And what
find
that
it for
means,
you and share it
I
too.
should know it. I've said it a million times. Friedman, thank you, Milton Friedman.
Friedman.
Um,
Hey, it started with an
but
F. You had the F.
that's right. I had it in there. When we decided that, we said people aren't as important. And when you make that decision, it sets a cultural move in a direction, which is ultimately it was going to be, okay, that's not true. People are the most important thing there is. So it was obviously always at odds. But now I think this is what's the most freeing thing, is like, we're discovering ourselves as people. We're leaning into what makes us special. We're appreciating that. In fractional, we're being paid for it. We're being rewarded for it.
Right.
Opportunities become because of that. So I am very optimistic and happy that this movement of fractional has allowed us the space to go, you're awesome. Be the awesome you. And you are different than the person to your left and the right.
Mhm.
You might have the same title, you might have the same role, you might have the same pay, but you are completely different.
Yeah.
There's a great book, Worthy by Jamie Kern Lima, that she does such a good job in this book of helping everybody see that. And she's got an amazing story as it is, but everybody is so worthy, so amazing just for being here. And I think we're
Mhm.
entering a place where we can really appreciate that now. I don't think we have for the last 50 years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's actually something Elizabeth and I talked about the last podcast. We talked about how, personalities play a large role in how successful you are in sales. And
Mhm,
because everyone, all the sales team, all the sales reps, they're all going to have different personalities. And so because of that, different customers are going to work differently with them, and they might,
mhm.
connect better with one over another. So take advantage of your individualism, but don't take advantage of it in a way that seems very selfish. You got to have that, one, gratitude, and two, sense of
Yeah,
authenticity. So
Mhm.
yeah.
definitely, you're preaching to the choir, John, and I really hope that our listeners are hearing us and might start implementing this into their daily lives.
I
Yeah.
hope so, because there's nothing but upside. There's nothing but upside of being giving and generous
Mhm.
and understanding your worth. It's only upside. The world has less and less appetite for selfishness.
Yes, yes, it does. But I feel like it's becoming more and more frequent at the same time. But
Mhm,
maybe we
mhm.
can change it. There's a small group of us trying to change the world again, I think.
Hey, that's how change happens.
Yeah, usually the minority ends up winning, right?
That's right. That's right.
All it takes, just to quote your wife, John, I think I'm quoting her, it just takes a ripple,
Mhm.
right? That's it.
It's
For
just
one stone in
everybody
the
creates a
pond.
ripple.
Yeah.
If you put out good vibes, it comes back to you.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, as we close down, I do have a challenge for our listeners. I mean, you heard John citing all these books. So I'm a reader, Elizabeth's a reader. John, I know you're a reader and a writer. Elizabeth and I are both trying to write as well, so we'll see what happens there. But one challenge that I always give individuals is I challenge you to read a nonfiction book that challenges your mindset. See if you can grow yourself, because it has been shown that if you read even 10 pages a day, 10 minutes a day, it's going to make a difference in your mindset. And more successful people read more books, right?
All the time.
So
Yep.
check out the books John mentioned. I'm sure Elizabeth and I will going to continue sharing books. We always do on our pages. So I challenge you to choose a new nonfiction book, pick it up, read it, and try to read it within a few months so you really get the meaning from it.
Yeah. Can I give you one that I think is a real winner right now?
Of course.
Absolutely.
The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson. Great nonfiction book. Highly recommend it.
Okay.
Awesome. Maybe we need to like curate a book list. I think that's what
I think we do.
I would just experiment.
I have an ever a growing book list. I've read the Good Giver. You know, I love that book. I'm reading psychometric, something like that. I'll share it. It's a very common book that people read to challenge their mindsets. I have so many psycho something books that I read, so it's kind of
well, of course, doing what you do, right? Doing what you do.
Yeah, it's hard not to.
Sarah Cowell, she's out of Wisconsin. She's got it's called Project Biz Lab, and she's got a whole resource of these just amazing. You can go right there. Oh God, you'll never have to go to the
subscribed
bookstore
to her,
again.
so I see all of her stuff.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, she's amazing. She's filtered through it all. So yeah.
That's
awesome.
wonderful.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, John, for joining us today.
My pleasure.
Giving us all sorts of insights. It was great talking with you.
Well, likewise, you guys are awesome. I hope this was enlightening. I certainly enjoyed it, but it's not about me. Hopefully it helps your listeners and you take wonderful steps forward.
Yes. Well, thank you, John. It was nice to see you virtually today. I'm sure we'll see each other again soon. And with that, this concludes another intriguing episode of Organizational Sherlocks. I'm Elizabeth Fleming.
And I'm Morgan Ashworth, reminding you that the journey to success is an ongoing investigation.
Remember to stay curious, stay strategic, and keep utilizing insights to decode your business mysteries.
Join us every Tuesday for your next Whodunit. This is Organizational Sherlocks, closing today's case.
We'll see you next time.